Welcome back to the newest segment of the Corporate Happiness Show. I'm Jacqueline, Pirtle, your host. You can find me at FreakyHealer.com. And this show is all about, talking to experts about how to bring happiness into the workplace and also like thinking outside of the box. So today, I have a very special guest. We actually never really met, but we met through conversing about my focus research groups about happiness at work. And she said yes to being on my show. So, Lynda, thank you so much for being on my show. Welcome.
Thank you for the warm welcome. It's an absolute pleasure. I know you and I have been going back and forth. It's definitely a long awaited conversation, so super excited to be here.
I know. Yeah, we've been trying to have this conversation for a while now. So I tell you what, I think we should dive right in because you are totally an expert in HR. So tell me a little bit about your background, like and about HR and whatever you want to share about what you do.
Yes. And so I've been in HR for a hot minute now. And so since 2008, so kind of dabbling both on the client side of things and as well as the in-house, kind of corporate side of things. And so I've worked with a multitude of leaders in a variety of settings. And so when you say expert, it's like, yeah, I know a little bit of everything. I'm dabbling a little bit of everything. And so I've seen it all in terms of HR. Um, and so why I'm here today and having this conversation with you is, I'm someone who did not take the conventional route in terms of success in the workplace. And naturally, it was very difficult for me. And so, my hope today is for us to chat and conversate about how I'm impacting kind of the HR space and as well as paving the path for the next generations moving forward. And so a industry rebel.
I like it. I like it. And I mean, that's the thing. It's like we want to touch base on new ways and also like really creative ways. So you work with now you changed your work ways a little bit. You actually work as a consultant for HR people. So what are the biggest issues that these HR people come into you and say, Lynda, help me?
So the biggest issue, and so for me, I work more on the side of just small businesses and startups where leaders are like, hey, Lynda, like HR side of things, we have no idea. And so I do dabble with, entrepreneurs, fellow entrepreneurs on the HR side as well, but I'm more on the business side where I'm like your HR expert. And so to answer your question about the biggest issue, I think folks have a dream. They start up their business, they're making money, but when it comes to their employees, they're like, we are making money now, but we want to keep them. Help. And so I think that's kind of where I come in. I swoop in, and for me, I'm always like my baseline is always compliance. We gotta stay compliant, and then as we grow, set the foundation. Then that's where the fun stuff comes in, the culture, the perks, the benefits, all that fun stuff comes in. And so yeah.
So you help HR departments set everything up from the start really correctly, so then you can actually go into the taking care of the culture and everything. I like
Mm-hmm.
that. I like that. So,
Yeah.
in your HR expertise career, what do you think are like some of the really big challenges that HR people are actually facing, and that keeps them from making really good change for a company?
A really beautiful question. I love that. I think the biggest challenge, I think for the longest time, the biggest challenge has always been showing the HR value to business owners, especially as you go up kind of the tier of the larger businesses, you still have to fight for your place at the table. Now we're seeing a huge shift now where now on top of the buy-in from leadership, now we have to find creative ways in which we can help folks stay at companies and attract talent. And so it's interesting to see this shift and this change. And I'm hoping that, with kind of different leaders coming into kind of the workplace now that we'll have entire change, uh, and a change in terms of kind of the profession in general. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think like with COVID and whatnot, because a lot of times I heard HR say, yeah, my job changed because of COVID. So what do you think about that? Did COVID change the job of HR?
Oh man, where do I start? COVID did a lot of things for a lot of folks, and in HR, definitely. And so, for what I've seen, the remote workplace was so in a lot of people's eyes before the pandemic. Really, was so out of reach. It was kind of a thing where people just kind of heard about, jumped about, but now that COVID hit, everyone became remote workers. And now, so the remote workforce is a huge thing. It's very, you can grasp it with your hands. And now a lot of folks are saying, let's go back to the office, and a lot of employees are saying, why? And so,
Yeah,
definitely
why?
that side of things, I know there's a lot of businesses that are saying, um, HR, get my people back into the office. Now, HR has to balance that. Okay, I need to get people enough reason to go back in the office. And there's a fine line between advocating for employees and then advocating for kind of the in office. And so, that balance is still very present. Um, but yeah, to answer your question, I think the remote workforce is now kind of the huge thing, and just navigating in between there. That I would say that's the biggest challenge.
I found that interesting what you're saying. It's like, so HR was there and HR had a little bit like an aftertaste too, right? And then COVID
Hmm.
happened. So they had to change their ways of doing their job. And a lot of them say they became these therapists too, right? And to motivate and to listen to all these issues and whatnot. And now they're asked to change again and to come up with
Hmm.
ways to bring people back into the office. It's quite, I mean, there's a lot about HR. And I always feel like if HR is this glue, right? They can fix so many
Hmm.
things, they can make things so good in a company. So, what would you tell anyone that's listening that is a leader in a company? What do you think HR really needs so they actually can actively really do their job and bring everything together in, because the position in itself has immense possibilities and opportunities to make a company, thrive with their people.
Hmm.
What do they need?
I love this question. I love how you kind of like ask it, because HR does need a lot of resources, but I think at the tippity top has to be transparency. And I preach that so often. It's as long as you're transparent with your HR folks, you can reach the stars. I think what typically happens is we're navigating through HR, and HR typically is kind of the afterthought. And then HR finds things out like 10, while the leaders are 10 steps ahead already. We're like, whoa, we were 10 steps behind. And so, that kind of provides a handicap to the business in terms of taking care of your biggest assets, which is your people, right? And so
Yeah.
why not keep your HR leaders in the loop consistently, and then make that way you can navigate through the waters and just become an amazing company. So definitely transparency for sure.
I like that. Now, what would you tell the HR people? Yeah, because a lot of HR people say, I don't have a seat at the table. Well, how can they create a
Mm,
seat at the table? What does an HR person need to have so they can actually go and sit at that table and say, well, here it is. Here's the why, the what, and everything.
yeah.
So how would you support HR people in saying this is how you get a seat at the table? Because there's what the
Hmm.
leaders can do, but there's also individually every HR person can recreate and reshape their job as well. What would you say to that?
Yeah, another amazing question, Jacqueline. I love these. Um, you know, I've grappled with this for a long time, and what I've come to realize is, honey, not every table is meant for you to sit at. And so, what I mean by that is you have to find your tribe. I meet with a lot of folks where they're just kind of like, Linda, your way of HR is not for us. That is entirely okay, because I'm going to keep trucking. I'm going to find my folks. And so, I think my number one advice to fellow HR folks is, hey guys, find the leaders that you're able to collaborate with, to partner with, and that their methodologies and their core values align with yours. I've worked with so many leaders that I'm just like, I can't do it anymore, because the belief systems are so different. And for me, I stay true to who I am.
I
And
like
so
that.
that's,
Yeah.
yes. So definitely staying true to who you are, finding folks in your tribe that are aligning, and then kind of magic together.
I like that. I really like that because it's like in this field of all these options and possibilities, you can actually get lost. But if you align with what you are wanting out of it, your values, and you find some
Mm-hmm.
company that aligns with you or leadership that aligns with you, you can actually really create magic. Which brings us to the next, which is so big. It used to be like, we'll give our people free pizza and everyone or a ping pong table and everything is going to be great, right? Well, that doesn't work anymore like that because values are just so important. I mean, what do you think about this whole value shift and everything? Where
Mm-hmm.
are we now? What do people really want?
Value systems, it varies by person, by company, by leaders, right? And so to answer your question about what people really want, to be honest, Jacqueline, it's really just to be heard, to feel
Mm-hmm.
like I have a voice, like, hey, I feel like I have an idea, being able to just say out loud. I think more and more the upward trend is now we see there's a trend of companies kind of utilizing, hey, we love diversity here. We want you to feel belonging here. We are inclusive, and we do this. And we have now an amazing thing I love that startups are doing now are affinity groups, which is just kind of separate groups of just saying, hey, here are the mothers we hang out here. Here are all, kind of the younger folks, the millennials over here, Gen Zs, or, hey, our work ethic is here. So it's not a dividing of kind of, hey, separating you by ABC. It's more of, hey, we appreciate this aspect of you. Let's conversate. Let's just kind of admire one another and those characteristics. And so definitely belonging, feeling like you're being heard. I think the traditional sense of HR, the traditional sense of the corporate world is that you go there for a paycheck and you leave, which is the truth for a lot of folks, But my belief is if I'm going to spend 8 hours with somebody, I'm going to need to feel at least good or at least
Yeah.
okay, instead of just dreading those 8 hours. And so definitely to be heard for sure and to feel like they belong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like you say, even if you're there for a paycheck, which, if it's not your company, you
Yeah.
obviously work there so you get paid. But in that
Mhm.
time, you also want to feel good. And I think if you
Yeah.
feel good, you have so much more to give. It's like, so
Mhm.
especially like if you're in leadership or if you're in HR, if you feel good, you also then can make the people feel good. And if you don't feel so good, then it's really hard. How are you going to make the people feel good or whatnot?
Yeah.
So going to your shift in your work, you are supporting HR departments and leadership. And what are you supporting them? Like, what's the end goal with your support that you bring into the table?
Yeah, so my day to day, my services are more advisory, right? And so it could range anywhere from, hey, Linda, we have this really complex employee relations issue. Can you help? We don't know how to navigate it. Or, hey, Linda, hey, I have the foundational things, business side. I just need you to come in and create the department for me. And so it could be foundational, it could be building up systems and departments, or it can be kind of on the retainer side of advising folks on complex employee relations issues and all that fun stuff. And what I also do as well is I also help employees and candidates, find their role, or speak up in the workplace or learn how to navigate and do some career coaching as well. And so, yeah.
Love that. Love that. And it's so needed right now. It's so needed. So
Yeah.
here are some questions that I always kind of like, I'm so giddy to even ask them because what I get out of my guests is just amazing. So what do you think leadership needs? So you have, and I mean, that's a big question because everyone is a little
Mhm.
different. Every business is different. But what do you think a leadership really needs in order to be able to create a really good environment at their job? What is the a couple really big needs that you've seen and that you feel like are really, really big?
Yet another amazing question. Definitely the big question. But if you ask me, I would say definitely being empathic towards your people and remembering that, hey, you're working with humans, fellow people that have lives. What I typically see is leaders get so caught up in the day-to-day businesses that it's very easy for to look at people as numbers, and we need to take a step back and say, hey, this person didn't make this meeting because they had to pick up their kids. It was an emergency. That's entirely fine. Instead of saying, yeah, you're out. And so it's definitely
Yeah.
being empathic towards your folks, and then definitely trusting your people and their expertise. I think naturally when you start a business, this is your baby. And I always say, this is your baby. I totally get it. But once you start hiring folks for their expertise, let the experts do their thing. And so, when combined, when you have a leader that is empathic towards their people and then they trust in people's expertise, there's really no limit at that point. And it is a very difficult thing because you have to find the right people, and it
Yeah.
takes definitely takes time, and that trust is built over time. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. And what about like management? What do you think management is in desperate need so they can actually do their job really good?
I think along the same lines what we just talked about. Well, if leadership has those two things, right, then it trickles down to management as well. And so if I'm a manager and my leaders trust me and they're empathic, they're very human, then it would kind of trickle down to how I am as a manager as well. And so I always tell leaders when I work with them, your leadership style trickles down and it shows in your people. And so if you don't like it, let's change it. If you like it, then okay, let's go and run with it. But once they have that from their leadership, I think well, empathic and trust are the huge. And I think I would say managers, that would be the same thing for me. Just remembering, hey, you're managing people, treat people like people, and trust your folks for what they're good at. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I like it, like it. And then we already covered HR. So, but what about the people? What would you say to somebody that's at a job and they feel they don't really they're not looking to change the job,
Mm-hmm.
but they might even like what they're doing, but it's just so
Mm-hmm.
hard to, to be happy at work or whatnot. What would you tell people? What are some steps that people can do and take to maybe create really a better situation at work?
I would say perception is everything. I'm a huge, huge, huge advocate for mental health. And so I would try to say, hey, um, what are some things you like to do outside of work? What are some things that you love to do that makes your heart happy, that makes gets you going in terms of the creative juices? That typically gets folks in a headspace where they realize, oh my gosh, I have not been dabbling in this, I have not been dabbling in this, or what I have folks tell me is, Lynda, you know what? At the end of that day, I am so tired, honey. Like I can't. I would love to dabble in, my creative side of things, but I'm so tired, and so, but the thing that folks understand is that is the first step to saying, hey, I haven't been committing time to myself. And so with that being said, you acknowledge it, your whole body acknowledges it, then you can, create a pathway towards it to make sure that you are doing things that make your heart happy, that make yourself happy. Or it could be a thing where I like what I'm doing, day to day, I just, it gets mundane. Well, be in the present moment. What helps me, because I'm a workaholic. And so what helps me is just kind of sitting there and realizing, hey, I'm working from home. I'm working from home. I have a job. I work with some really cool, awesome people. How can I integrate my creativeness into my day to day? And so that's typically what gets folks, to kind of snap out of the kind of routine and mundaneness and realize there is magic to my life and there is magic to what I do. And I'm going to choose to integrate that magic for my day to day because I deserve to be happy. So,
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, and what about if somebody is looking for a new job? So, as an
yeah.
HR specialist, like, what are some things that you really want to see out of people when they come to HR and they say, I'd love to work for you? And, like, again, this is a big question, it's a big picture,
Yeah.
but we all know about the red flags. Well, what about the green
Mm-hmm.
flags? Like, okay, I'm looking for a job. So, what, as an HR expert, what do you want to see out of people? What's important for you to see out of
Mhm.
people?
I think, there's so many tips and tricks out there to say, hey, tailor your resume to the job you want. And I totally agree with that. That's fine. But what peeks out at me is someone who puts little inserts of themselves into the resume. And so whether that is using Canva to make an entirely visually appealing resume, or saying little things like, hey, during this gap I was a mom, and just kind of putting little things, being creative within that aspect, that piques me. And even if you're not a fit, that keeps you at the top of my head. And so I think we're kind of getting more into the kind of this workplace in which we value the uniqueness that people bring. And so for me, when I take a look at resumes, the ones that peek out to me are folks who are just, again, you put little inserts of their personality, who's just unapologetically themselves. And so that's what I would say. Now, not everybody looks at it that way, not all HR folks. And for me, I'm hoping that with, the new generation of leaders that we go more towards that way. So,
I like that. You've been mentioning new generation of leaders now a
yeah.
couple times. What do you mean with that?
Yeah, and so I think what people kind of misperceive, they're like, oh, you're talking about your generation, you're talking about millennials. And it's like, that's cool. My generation is coming into the workplace and we're kind of saturating it. But I'm just talking about the next generation of leaders in general who are choosing to say, hey, that's not working, obviously. So we're choosing to do ABC instead. And so my hope with working with small business leaders and startups, and as well as employees and candidates, is that I'm able to impact the next generation of leaders to think, to remember that folks are folks. People are people. I'm choosing to be empathic towards folks. And as a leader, I'm choosing to trust my folks. And so that's kind of what I mean by the next generation of leaders, not necessarily kind of the technical generations, but just kind of folks who choose to improve and kind of be industry rebels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, honestly, I think it's incredible that there's so many generations right now and everyone is
Yeah.
different, because to me that makes the whole everything, the workplace
Mm-hmm.
and private, it makes it actually richer, because you
Mm-hmm.
have you if you're open, you can actually learn so much from each other. You can hear so many different ways,
Yeah.
and then to kind of package that as a whole, and like you say, humanize everything and just realize that everyone has some sort of opinion and
Mm-hmm.
passion, and everyone is here to live a rich and glorious life. And when you package that, you can actually really learn from each other, and not just say, oh, that generation, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
like I've heard that about my generation, and now we are saying it about the next generation. It's like really silly,
Mm-hmm.
actually, to me, because every generation has these nuggets of wisdom and different
Mm-hmm.
ways of doing things, and if you mix that all up together, it can become really creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really creative. So you're
Exactly.
a
And that's
mom
why I kind of,
too, right? Yeah.
yes,
Sorry.
I am. I am. So I'm a mother of four.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
nice.
So
That's
definitely,
yeah.
yeah, definitely have seen some stuff, have gone through life. And so, yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's also, I feel like I'm a mom too, and it's like it
Yeah.
really helps you being open and seeing everything a little bit different, because they're doing things very differently than we do, and that we
Mm-hmm.
even thought about it. And I always feel like I can learn so much about it. So, where can people find you? So, let's say I want Lynda's help. Lynda, help me. Where can people come and find you?
Yes. And so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Just put Lynda Yang, hrmillennium.io, and boom, I pop up, or you can even just go to Google. But my site is hrmillennium.io. And there's some little nuggets of kind of little things that I think is really fun on my site. So go check it out. But yeah, so either LinkedIn or even directly on my site. Um, that's where you can find me. I'm pretty responsive, and so I'm hoping to hear from folks and always open to chat. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's right. And I like what you just said, that there's little fun things on your website. That's actually exactly
Yeah.
what you just said. What you're looking in a resume too. It's like, so you,
Hmm.
whatever you just explained, you're actually doing it, you actively yourself. And I like that, because then I can say, ooh, that fits me or that doesn't fit me. And I like how you're very in your lane and aligned. And I believe, I'm a big believer in that, when you show up as that, and that's how you
Hmm.
can create the magic, instead of, you create not magic. You create magic when you're actually hanging out with the people and you're kind of clear about what fits and what doesn't fit. I really like
Hmm.
that. So we are actually at the end of our show, but I mean, I just love all the wisdom that you brought, and I hope that people are really inspired and really check Lynda out. She's amazing. So thanks for being on the show, Lynda.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. It's been an absolute pleasure. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. And to all the listeners, move along in your new day, your new evening, whenever you're listening to that, inspired, and really check Lynda out and just have fun in life and choose who you want to align with, because as Lynda said, that's how you create the magic. Thank you so much.